Ladies and gentlemen, your eyes do not deceive you. We are, in fact, finally back here for another edition of the Whiskey Gingers podcast. I'm Brandon. That's Chris. We apologize for the extended delay, but just sometimes stuff gets in the way of podcasting, and we didn't have any episodes banked because we always do these live. So for better or for worse, sometimes that comes back to bite us in the ass a little bit. But we're back. We're going to be back on track for at least every other week, sometimes every week. But we apologize for the unplanned hiatus.
It happens.
Chris has a couple of.
I think we kind of expected it.
Yeah, it was going to happen eventually. We made it. It's funny it happened right after our first full year of doing it. We were pretty consistent, and then we made the year, and then everything kind of went to hell in a handbasket. But we're back up on our feet now.
I'm going to blame it on the holidays, and we'll just get past this, and then we'll be back to normal.
Exactly. So speaking of back to normal, obviously this isn't our normal setup. Things still aren't, completely easy. Chris's whole company's sick. So we're doing this one remotely this week. And then I haven't gotten heat yet in the bar studio, so I'm doing this inside. So nothing's normal yet, but we're still back drinking whiskey, and that's the closest thing to normal we're going to have.
Absolutely.
And I know Chris has to do some wizardry to be able to show off his bottle, so we'll give him a second to get that set up. I am going with the Jim Beam Devil's Cut this week. We usually do things a little bit more, off the wall. Haven't heard of them before, haven't tried them before, but we try to save those when we're together so we can kind of experience it for the first time. So I decided to go with, old reliable Jim Beam. And then Chris pulled something out of the dusty, hidden in the back section of his whiskey, his whiskey collection over there. So what do we have?
So a few years ago, I was on a cruise with my family, and they always have like those liquor areas that you can go buy, like, the duty-free liquors. So I thought that was a good opportunity to buy something that was maybe a little bit more expensive that I wouldn't have necessarily bought otherwise. And at the time, for me, a couple years ago, I certainly wouldn't have spent like $100 on whiskey. Now, if I know it's good, I have no problem with that. But back then I wouldn't. So I got the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select, which this is like as close to a picture of the bottle that I can find. Because when I got it, after a while, I decided to put it in a decanter. So it's been sitting in a decanter for a little while now. And my thought process, too, that I'm really curious to tell is how good the decanter is and if it's messed up the whiskey over time, which I don't really think is quite possible. But I guess if it's not completely airtight, it certainly could. But it's a decanter. That's what it's supposed to be used for. So we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, and even if it did, I'm not sure you would necessarily remember because when's the last time you had this?
Oh gosh, at least 6 months ago, I might have poured a glass, but probably longer.
Yeah, so I mean, you probably only remember how it tasted when it was correct.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
that's definitely true.
Oh, let's see what we got. Virtual cheers.
Buddy. Yep, cheers. Mine's looking a lot more caramely.
Mm-hmm. Whew. Devil's Cut's no joke.
Yeah. This one also, I believe, is a higher percentage. And it is quite tasty, actually, if anything. If it diluted a little bit, it actually got easier to drink. It is 65%, 130 proof.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, for the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select.
This is 90 proof. But it's not the alcohol that gets you. Like there's no, I gotta say, for a bourbon and the one that's supposed to be extracted from the walls and this like really intense bourbon, there's little to no burn to it, but there is an overwhelming woody, smoky taste to it.
Oh, I'm sure.
When I say overwhelming, I truly do mean overwhelming.
Yeah. I'm curious to remember like what the flavor notes in this one were when I got it. I'm going to see if it has a description on here. Tennessee, medium, slightly oily bodied, sweet and slightly astringent, following on the palate. Oak, cocoa, then pepper, developing and causing tongue to tingle around the edges pleasantly. Nice mixture of light fruits and medium dry finish with tingling rye on the tongue. It's honestly really good, but I don't know. I went through a time where I was very, you knew this, and we talk about it all the
Yeah.
time, where I was very anti bourbon. So I really didn't try it that often. But
Mhm.
I think now that my bourbon palate has expanded a little bit, I actually enjoy it more than I did when I got it.
I'm surprised a year ago and maybe a year and a half ago that you would have spent A, that kind of money on whiskey, and B, to do it on a bourbon nonetheless.
It was longer than that. I'm remembering I'm like way off. This is an old bottle that I have. I'm not even kidding. I got this bottle probably about 5 years ago.
Yeah, because I mean,
It was a
because
cruise I took with my family, and it was right around the time that I met my wife. So it was quite a
that's
long time ago.
because the last cruise that you went on, the podcast existed, so it couldn't have been that one.
Yep. The
And
one
then
before that.
the other one, I still knew you, so I would have known if you brought a fancy whiskey home.
Yeah, no. This one's an old bottle. It's probably like 5 or so years old.
So how long do you think it's been the decanter?
I don't know. Probably like 2 to 3 years.
Jeez. You're asking an awful lot of that decanter.
I could be doing this all wrong. People are going to be in the comments freaking out about it, but I don't know. Like I said, if anything, if it did dilute, it actually tastes better.
I'm gonna try and get an idea here on how long you can decant whiskey. Spirits can last years. Best practice, though. Okay. The max you're supposed to store your whiskey in a decanter is 2 years.
Well, we're definitely on the cusp of that, if not longer.
Yeah. Now it's not going to go bad on you. What it's gonna do is create some discoloration and loss of flavor intensity.
That's probably why it tastes better, because it was super, super strong when I first got it. Like the flavor in this really punched you in the face. So I would believe that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, so a lot of that's probably worked its way out from just not sitting in the decanter for that long and not being in an airtight bottle.
Definitely. But you know what? Got to drink it someday so I can put something else in there.
Yeah, I gotta get a decanter. Actually, it's missing from a pretty solid whiskey collection. I also got to get some way to display my whiskey because you've seen my setup where it's in that cabinet in the dining room, which I would love to just take the doors off and make that like a display case. Yeah. But the shelves aren't tall enough for the Eagle Rare, so I have Eagle Rare laying on its side, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
You can't have that.
Maybe we can get some shelves put in for you behind the bar. That'd be the
ideal like display shelves.
And in the winter, it'll stay nice and cool. It'll stay chilled for you.
Unless that could be the way winter's going now. They might freeze on me.
Yeah, that would be quite some frigid temperatures for alcohol to freeze. But
that's true. But speaking of the seasons and speaking of winter, we're on the other side of Thanksgiving now, which for me starts the Christmas season. It just starts all of that like holiday season, wintry goodness. But too many people overlook Thanksgiving, in my opinion. And we're going to get down to the heart of the entire Thanksgiving meal. Well, actually, this just became a two-part question because of a debate that I had at a Thanksgiving dinner I was at. What would you say is the centerpiece of a Thanksgiving meal? Is it the protein? I mean, most people go turkey, some go ham, or is it the sides? What takes center stage?
I mean, I try and exclude eating turkey like that to Thanksgiving. So I would say like that to me makes it the front runner. But I've had this conversation a million times, and for a long time, my family used to do turkey and ham, and the ham always went more than the turkey. Because I think people tend to like turkey in the sense that it's good for Thanksgiving, but I think people would pick something else given the choice a lot of the times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would still say that like the protein is the main thing. However, I absolutely love Thanksgiving sides. It's like one of the best parts of Thanksgiving.
I'm right there with you. For me, I'm the same way. For me, the turkey is everything. I think it has a big part to do with the fact that, probably for the last 4 years or so now, the turkey's been like my responsibility. So that for me, for anybody who cooks, like cooking a holiday meal is your Super Bowl. So for me, the Thanksgiving turkey is like my magnum opus for the year. So I put a little extra emphasis on that. That's not to say that a green bean casserole doesn't, blow your way, or a really good, sweet potato casserole, some homemade mac and cheese. Like, I mean, the sides are out of this world. But as far as, I don't know, for me, that turkey for that week, like I'm studying recipes. I'm looking at new technologies that came out. Like, that's my everything that week.
And speaking of that, we had a thought process on the best way to cook your turkey. Correct? Was kind of your thought process on that?
Yeah, and we're two good people to talk about this, because we have tried and true, and probably 80% of households in America do it your way and bake the turkey. And then you have kind of the people branching out a little bit to alternative cooking methods, which is how my family does it. And for the last 5 or 6 years now, we've either fried or smoked our turkey for Thanksgiving. I had a baked turkey this year. I went to 2 Thanksgivings, and they still hold up. But man, I just don't think it's even close once you've tried both.
No, I tend to. I can't even weigh in on this, frankly, because I haven't had a fried turkey before. But I know people swear by it. Like, people think it's like one of the best things ever.
It is. Because
the
hardest
part.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
The hardest part of cooking a turkey, and like the reason that people are like, the reason people like applaud a good turkey is that it's so hard to keep it from getting dry. Like, turkey's a meat that just wants to dry out. So it's an art to be able to do that in an oven over a long period of time. But when you deep fry it, 45 minutes, that turkey's in and out. I mean, it just stays so much more moist because it's not drying out for an hour and a half, 2 hours, however long it takes to cook whatever size bird you have.
Way longer than that, typically. I mean, we cooked ours for like 5.5 hours this year.
Yeah.
Because it was a 25-pound bird. Which was quite a beefy bird, but we had to get creative this year. We couldn't, due to some dietary restrictions, we didn't do garlic and onion in our bird, which if you know Morgan, she puts garlic and onion in everything.
On everything.
So like that was, and that's typically a big part of most recipes for cooking a turkey. But this year we did something a little bit different. We did like a butter compound mixture with some spices and stuff. And she stuffed it underneath the skin of the turkey.
Yep.
And when we cooked it, this thing came out super, super moist and like really good. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we were having this conversation before. It was a fresh turkey that we got from a farmer's market this year. We paid ridiculous amounts for this turkey, but honestly, it was like the best turkey that we've ever cooked in the oven before. And we've done turkey brines and like all of those tips and tricks to get, a juicier turkey, and they have worked. I'm not going to say that they haven't, but this turkey specifically looked like it could have been on a postcard, and it tasted so good. Even reheated, it still maintained a lot of that moisture, which was great.
Don't forget, we cook it upside down.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to disclose your trade secret, but if you want to disclose it, then that's fine. I don't even think it's that much of a trade secret. I'm sure other people do it, but we always, for the first hour or so of the turkey cooking, we cook it upside down. Breast down first, and then we flip it over after that, and then we cook it. And then once you get a good crisp on the outside, we cover it up with tin foil, cook the rest, and that also keeps a lot of the moisture in.
Along that same thought process of tucking the butter up under the skin like that, look into getting an injector. We got one of those probably 3 turkeys ago, and we make that butter mixture separate and just inject it into different parts of your turkey. Same general thought process, but it gets it into the meat itself. It's out
physically in there. It sounds really good. So how does the process, run me by, I'm curious, how does the process for the frying the turkey work? And what are obviously you hear about this being like Thanksgiving being one of the number one house fire days of the year recently because people have been doing the trends. So like,
Yeah.
how does one prevent against that? And how
Yeah.
does it like come out in the end? What's the process like?
Well, I mean, so I'll go through the process of how you do it, and then we'll address the fire when we get to that portion. So basically, what you do is you got to buy like a special apparatus for this, really. So it's a stand with with a flame, kind of like one big propane heater, kind of in a sense. That's on a stand.
It's like a single burner stove
Yep.
top, basically.
Yep. And yeah, so you get that set up, you get your propane tank set up, and then you get a real deep, like double the size of a sauce pot kind of setup. Fill that with, so we did a 14-pound bird, so we had to do 3 gallons of peanut oil, which is crazy expensive, by the way. 3 gallons of peanut oil runs you about $70 right now.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so I mean, you can reuse it. It's not a one-time deal. So you fill that up, crank your propane way up, get that cooking to around. You want to be around 350 when you put the bird in. So get that hot. The turkey has this little stand with a hook that you run up through the cavity and then through where the neck of the turkey used to be.
Okay.
Put that on first. Then you do your injections, your seasonings, we brine ours with mayo for a little while. Like you do all that stuff.
Interesting.
Then when you're getting ready to drop it in, we just get a bunch of paper towels. You can sacrifice an old towel if you want to do it. You get every last bit of moisture off of that turkey. You get up in the cavity with it. We leave a paper towel in there for about an hour before we go in, like in the cavity of the turkey to get the moisture out. Once it's completely dry, like drier than the Sahara, then you drop it in your oil, put the lid on that, and then run it for about 3 minutes per pound at 350. So the reason that people are burning their houses down is one of two things. They're buying a frozen turkey and they're not thawing it out all the way. And anybody who's ever worked in food service knows if you put water in fry oil, it's an instant fire. So that's happening a lot. People are getting a fresh turkey, but even a fresh turkey is really damp. I mean, it's so many, they're not patting it dry. They're dropping that in again in water, hot oil, fire. And then probably the most common one is people filling the entire sauce pot up with peanut oil. That hot oil overflows, hits the propane. It's really easy not to do that. I mean, it's, our first year doing it.
You've been doing it for years, so.
And our first year we didn't do it. So we didn't burn ourselves. So it's really not hard to not burn the house down, but people do find a way.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, people find a way to, and not to mention that when you think about it, Thanksgiving is a big day where a lot of people get together and like have a bunch of drinks with their family and stuff. So you imagine open flames, burning hot oil, and a bunch of beers probably don't go so well together in the end.
No, not at all. But it is, like I said, we used to bake it. My whole childhood, we baked it till probably I was 17. Then we started smoking the turkey, which was great in and of itself. I loved, it was awesome. But you lost some of the turkey flavor. I thought like it came out tasting like cherry wood, mesquite, whatever we used that day. Which that's great if you're doing pulled chicken, ribs, stuff like that, but a Thanksgiving turkey isn't supposed to taste like that, in my opinion. So we kind of got away from it.
That must take a long time too, I imagine, right, to get that done right, like more so than baking it. Yeah,
I mean, God, we do it at 225, and I want to say we put that thing in at like 10 in the morning. And we eat Thanksgiving. We don't do an early Thanksgiving dinner. We eat it at like 5 or something, like a normal dinner time. So maybe it probably at least an 8-hour smoke, which was just a pain in the balls. And
I'm sure.
It's cold out. You can't get the smoker up the temperature. You're running back and forth with wood. And it's still, I mean, we had some great turkeys that way, but nothing gets close to the moisture that a fried turkey gives. And the second day, God, I think that's where it's a clear victor because, obviously, Morgan's a hell of a cook and you can finagle ways around the baked turkey to make it equally moist.
Yeah.
I think day 2, when you go to make that second day turkey sandwich and you have a fried crispy skin on your turkey slices, I think
Makes a
that's
big
where
difference.
that's where it blows it out of the water. I just had one for dinner.
We take all of our leftover turkey, not all of it, because we probably eat it for a few days afterwards. Because leftover Thanksgiving dinner, I mean, you gotta nurse giving up your Thanksgiving dinner before you have to go a whole year without having it again. But once we get like a few days of leftovers out of the way, whatever turkey we have left, she always makes a turkey and rice soup. She just made it today or yesterday, actually.
That still counts as leftovers, in my opinion.
It's really good, though. I mean, it extends the life of your turkey there, and it also tastes amazing. And you could also use like more of the bird than you might do if you're like slicing up the breast and stuff. Is usually what a lot of people go for eating the turkey for dinner. But then, like, we use a lot of the dark meat and a lot of just like the smaller scraps to make the soup, and it winds up coming out great. So.
That's the other, and we'll leave it at this because we're running up on time. But that's one of the other benefits to frying it. The dark meat really shines because it's kind of, it's like a big crispy wing. So the skin makes a big difference on the drumsticks, on the wings, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
God, I'm hungry.
Amazing.
This is a very food focused episode for us, and we probably won't be this food focused again until. It might come up on our Christmas episode. It might not. It might not be until the Easter ham rolls back around when we talk this much about food. But it's a nice change.
Big fan of Easter ham.
Me too. We'll get it. So we'll mark that down. We'll get into Easter ham techniques also. But
definitely.
For this week, I'm Brandon. That's Chris. This has been Whiskey Gingers, and we will see you again soon.
Thanks, guys.